Welcome into Mississippi State Live Postgame here on the Voice of College Football Network. I'm Andrew Miller, and we are reacting to a 4-0 football team. Mississippi State football gets the win over Northern Illinois today, 38-10. Was not exactly a pretty game all the way through. What's up, Will? What's up, D Swindle? What's going on, y'all? Swindeezy, I know who that is. Great to have you on the chat. Yeah, Bulldogs moved to 4-0 for the first time since 2014, a game that was not completely pretty all the way through, but a win nonetheless. And, hey, they covered the point spread, which is certainly great to see. Just right off the bat, if you haven't already, give us a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you could. We want to continue getting those subscriber numbers up. We're around 85 or so. Want to get that thing to 100. That'd be really cool. And, hey, turn the notification bell on so you do know when we go live. That's really helpful for these post-game shows where we don't have anything scheduled well in advance. So it's good to be able to have that notification bell so you know if I'm on here yapping about whatever, which is typically going to be, reacting to a game. But, hey, maybe we get to a point where we have some emergency shows for anything in the future. And if you could share the channel, we would certainly appreciate that as well. Mississippi State gets the win. Really great to see. This was sort of the last little test here early in the season of, okay, is this team going to position themselves to enter SEC play as a clearly improved team? Obviously, you knew they were better by everything they had shown to this point, but to have gone through what they did a season ago, you kind of had to get through non-conference play looking clean if you wanted to feel really good about where this team was going to be moving forward. I can't say we do feel really good because they didn't exactly play the cleanest game, but which I'll talk on that here in a bit. But ultimately, you get the win. You were 4-0. You handled business through the non-conference slate, and you have set yourselves up that if you can find 2 conference wins over the final 8 games, you will go to a bowl game for the first time since 2022, which would be a big step forward for this program. Going to have to play a lot better than they did today if they're going to make that happen because it is still a very difficult SEC schedule. But if you find 2 more wins the rest of the way, you're going bowling. So you had to handle business in this game and ultimately get it done. As Will points out, they have yet to play a full 4 quarters, and that worries them. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that's both a concern but also a maybe a bit of a positive because on the one hand, you look at it and say like, okay, why is this team struggling to put together a 4-quarter game of football? I mean, Alcorn State notwithstanding, that game doesn't count. That they were playing a high school team out there. But against 3 opponents that have a pulse, they have not played a full 4 quarters. Now, 2 of those 3 games they won comfortably, and the other one they found a way to pull out the win. That's a good sign that they are finding ways to win despite not playing it today. Yeah, but when they do put it together, this team could end up being pretty good. But you got to figure that out quickly, especially because of what you have on the horizon with Tennessee coming to town next week and then Texas A&M on the road the week after that. It's going to be crucial that Mississippi State gets a complete game together pretty quick. Let's talk about this game a little bit more specifically. A lot of sloppiness from State in a lot of ways. I mean, the big thing that's going to stand out is penalties. 11 penalties for 104 yards of penalties. A lot of that on offense, but the defense had some calls as well. Defense also got away with, on a huge play, a game-changing play with Isaac Smith's interception. There was blatant defensive holding. I'm shocked they did not throw the flag there. I know Thomas Hammock was upset in the 4th quarter on a 4th down stop, and at this point the game was out of reach completely. Kind of got away with another defensive hold. They just weren't throwing those flags, and that said, State still commits 11 penalties in this game. It was an issue against Southern Miss that prevented that game from being a bigger blowout than it was. I don't know. I'm trying to remember how much did that really get you against Arizona State. I don't think they had a ton of penalties in that game, but they committed a lot of penalties against Alcorn. This has been a team that has been pretty undisciplined from a penalty standpoint here early in the season. And, I tweeted out about one of those penalties, why they happened quite a bit, and I'll talk about that here in a sec. But the other stuff, some of it's just a pure lack of execution. Some of it is pure sloppiness. And those are things that will come back to bite you. Hammock is such a great coach. Yeah, no, Thomas Hammock is a really good football coach. Hammock is one of those coaches in the MAC that, like, he's almost never going to get a chance to get up to a better job because people are going to look at his overall record and say there's no way we can hire that guy without understanding how impressive what he has done at NIU is. And look, he's at his alma mater, which is good for him. And we'll see if the move to the Mountain West, which is so weird, whether or not that'll help him out a little bit, maybe in terms of being able to recruit a little bit more. I don't know. That might be weird for guys within the Midwest and the recruiting base, like playing a bunch of teams from out west. It's a weird move for them, but I understand why they're doing it, because they're going to get more money than they get in the MAC, and that's part of the problem with the MAC is those teams don't have money. No, Hammock is a fantastic coach. He gets his teams up to play. And we could talk a little bit about what NIU did in this game here in a sec, but just getting back to the main point, State sloppiness with the penalties, like at a certain point, that's going to cost them. I feel like there's going to be a game this year, unless that gets cleaned up, committing penalties at the rate they do, they are going to lose a football game because of a stupid penalty at a bad time. And this game could have been closer if there had been a couple other flags thrown. You maybe don't cover the point spread like you ultimately did, which this is a game where State covers the spread, and I do not feel like State should have covered the spread. Like, they did not play it well enough that you're walking out of here with a 28-point victory over NIU. So there's that part of it. Blake Shapen was not sharp in the passing game. He had guys open downfield and did not hit them. NIU did a pretty good job of trying to keep everything in front of him. And what they were doing defensively was sort of the three high safety looks, playing with the light box. I've talked about that a lot. That whole style of defense, the idea is we're trying to take away the explosive play. We're trying to take away the quick, easy dump-off throws on the RPO games. We are baiting you into running the football because we trust that our defensive front is strong enough, one, to limit you, but two, that our linebackers and safeties are going to get downhill and make stops. It's what Mississippi State tries to do on defense most of the time. And it's a really good style of defense against State's offense. It really created with that intention put in mind. That being said, you still get one-on-ones on the outside. Like, it's kind of hard to not cover receivers one-on-one on the outside, especially with how State splits out their receivers. The safeties can help a little bit, but if you're getting those safeties involved in the run fit as much as you do when you play this style, you're going to get those one-on-one looks on the outside. And State's receivers are going to win one-on-one downfield. Shapen just didn't hit him. I mean, he connected on two in this game. He gets the one to Jordan Mosley to open up the second half, which was set up a touchdown. Better throw, it would have been a touchdown, though it was still not a great throw. But that was after missing Mosley in the first half. And then he has the great check to Anthony Evans where he knows there's pressure. He knows he's got one-on-one. He checks to Evans to a slot fade. Well, really, I didn't think he just checks protection there. He gives him max protect. Still had a free rusher coming right at him and lays it out there, and Evans makes a great grab. But had Brendan Thompson wide open multiple times. One of them hurt. They get PI. Better throw, it's a touchdown. You don't even have PI. Obviously, like I said, we had Jordan Mosley open downfield, and he wasn't able to hit him. This has been a thing for him, man, in these games. There's been a couple really pretty deep balls, but there has been a few times this year where he is just not connected on those throws the way that you need him to. And with the way State's offense has been working right now, with the explosive plays being so critical for them being able to have success because they've not been able to sustain drives the way they need to. If you have those shots downfield, you have to hit them. I mean, that was kind of the thing, last year for Tennessee, very similarly with Nico. Now Tennessee was a better run team, but they ran into some teams that could just key in on the run and basically said, like, we're not going to let you just hand the ball off for 5 yards of play over and over and over again. We're going to force you to hit plays down the field. And Nico would get receivers open downfield. He wouldn't connect with them. And that's really what kept that offense in trouble. You've got to hit those shots downfield. That is such a big part of what you want to do offensively anyway, but it is incredibly crucial for this team because they've not been able to sustain drives. Second half, it was still a little bit better. Still was not where it needs to be. And again, every game this season, Shapen has missed at some point on a shot downfield. And I understand you're not going to hit one-on-one, but it's or hit every single one. But it's one of those things where, if it's a 50-50 ball and you don't come up with the catch, that's one thing. When you got the guy streaking free and all you got to do is lay it on him. Or heck, the underthrow. I mentioned he underthrew Thompson on one in the first half, and it resulted in a pass interference call. That's the alternative. Like, don't overthrow it. If you underthrow it, at least you're almost certainly going to get called get a PI call because the D is going to run into the receiver, which is it's one of those things where DBs are kind of screwed. They can't do anything about that. It's not that they're trying to interfere. It just sort of happens. But he overthrows. I don't know how you overthrow Brendan Thompson as much as he does for a guy that's that fast, but it's something Shapen has got to continue to work on. You cannot get away with missing those shots down the field. And I also think about you get into a big game, those explosive plays, not only are they so crucial for State to be able to have success, those explosive plays are going to be how they are able to pull off upsets this year. Because frankly, if they're going to go to a bowl, they are going to have to pull off upsets. They just are. The schedule is still incredibly difficult. Being able to pull off an upset against a good team, explosive plays are a huge part of being able to do that. And I apologize for the dog barking right here. He is losing his mind, and that is just doing a great job of ruining the stream. Hold on just a sec. I apologize for that. It's a great part of the stream right now. I don't have a great setup here at this moment. But yeah, the explosive plays, like you have to be able to connect on those in the passing game. And that's something Shapen's going to have to be better on, especially because, they tried to do some underneath passing stuff and it just wasn't there in this game. NIU did a good job covering a lot of that stuff up. And I think some of that is a product of the way NIU is playing. I also think this is a concern for me with State going forward. There's a chance part of it is a concern with State's receivers. And I'm not talking about those guys not being talented because Brendan Thompson and Anthony Evans have shown that they're very good players. I think they are most effective, though, as guys where it's kind of like Thompson especially, it's, taking the top off the defense. Evans, it's sort of the speed and space idea. I don't know how much those are guys where in terms of like quick little, throwing a quick hitch or throwing a quick crosser. Like I know they've hit on a couple of those, but I do wonder a little bit like how much of those guys, like if you were to throw a different route, like a more of a diverse route tree at them, are you having the success that you need to be able to have? That is just something I do wonder about a little bit with this team because they haven't shown a ton of that. And it kind of gets into the idea of what were they trying to build this team to do this year? Because I know there was the whole emphasis on the run game stuff, and we've talked about it, where bulking up the offensive line, adding tight ends, getting Fluff Bothwell, and we'll talk about the run game here in just a sec. You clearly wanted to be able to mash on the ground game more, and you haven't been able to consistently do it to this point. And I talked about a few episodes ago, I don't think with Jeff Lebby, it's ever going to be a case of they're going to run the ball just to run the ball. I don't think it's ever going to be a case of they're going into a game saying, well, we just have to hand the ball off no matter what. They're going to take what the defense gives them, and they're going to trust that there's, again, it's an offense. It's not about being run first. It's an offense that's about having run-pass conflict. It's the big thing that I've tried to emphasize. Emphasize, not empathize. That's weird. But the other part to that, though, is if you are going to have that run game be more of a threat, you are trusting that that's where you're going to set up the deep shots down the field. And I think they kind of recruited receivers to be vertical threats, which, frankly, that's kind of the idea within this offense. So I do wonder if some of the passing game not having much success underneath is a product of, just the skill talent that you have, and that those guys are just going to be better suited as winning downfield or, taking a quick screen. As we saw, we saw the jet sweeps. We got Jet Lebby for the first time this year. It's so funny that was a big thing when he was hired, that all Oklahoma fans could do was talk about get ready for a million jet sweeps, and State just didn't do that. This was the Jet Lebby game. We saw Jet Lebby, and finally they caught it. NIU caught on to it and made a few stops. O-line inconsistency hurts that a little bit when it comes to some of the inconsistency with the run game, for sure. But yeah, like you've had to hit the explosive plays, and State just hasn't been able to do it consistently. That's something they're going to have to get better about going forward. With all that said, they did find more on the ground in this game, which helped them out get the offense going. Big day running for MSU, 292 rushing yards. It was like 49 attempts. They ran right at 6 yards per carry. Fluff Bothwell has his first 100-yard game as a Bulldog, goes with 101. 45 for Xavier Gaden, had a few nice runs. Devon Booth, 7 carries for 22 yards. Wasn't able to get a ton going, but he was able to get into the end zone a couple of times. I mentioned he had the jet sweeps. Brendan Thompson takes 10 yards for a touchdown. They got it to Evans on 3 occasions for 21 yards. Kind of the underrated story. Look, Blake Shapen, like I said, did not have a great game in this game. What he did do was get his legs involved. 11 carries for 51 yards. They called a couple zone reads with him where one of them, he got a huge gain off of it. And then there was also the huge scramble to convert on a 2nd and 20 or a 1st and 20, whatever it was. Like that stuff is going to be big for helping this offense out going forward. If you can get Shapen's legs involved a little bit more, and I know they're weary about that because of the injury stuff, which is why, look, I don't think you're going to call runs for him up the gut, right? You're going to mostly do it more around the edge or let him take a quarterback draw and sort of like when the defense is spread out. But just that element does help a little bit. And look, it's an underrated part of Shapen's game. It is. No, he's not going to be a runner like Kamario Taylor is, and I know people want to see that element of the offense more. But when Levy has a guy who is a willing runner at quarterback and can at least present that threat on occasion, that's big for the offense moving forward. I get you. We don't want it to do it a ton, and I worry about Shapen running. I totally get it, especially because, like I've said before, his self-preservation rating is terrible. The guy will just go on and take hits when he has no business doing it. I thought it was a little bit better in this game. I thought he slid when he needed to, but getting him involved on some quarterback keepers, I think, is going to help out a lot. Fluff needs more touches, and maybe that changes in SEC play. I mean, he got plenty in this game. I do think we have seen Fluff Bothwell establish himself. He is the top back in this room. I was big on Devon Booth was going to be the guy coming to the year because of the way he performed last season. And to this point, he's just had a hard time really getting going. And it's not just a product of, being in some weird spots. Like situationally, getting involved in the game. And it's like, well, they happen to be throwing more on this time. Or, oh, well, the offensive line just didn't block for him well. What Fluff has shown more consistently than Booth is the ability to make something out of nothing. And that is a huge part of why you want him in the game. We talked about the offensive line inconsistencies with run blocking, and it was a little bit better in this game. They did a good job running counter quite a bit, especially in the second half. They adjusted to calling counter a lot, and they ran that well. It was a good adjustment to some of what NIU was doing. But Bothwell specifically is someone who is always going to continue fighting ahead for yardage. When things are not blocked up well in front of him, he can pull ahead for a couple more yards. There were times where he was wrapped up and he still fell forward to pick up 2-3 extra yards. You need that. And I think you're especially going to need that if the offensive line is going to be as inconsistent run blocking as they were. And they got better as the game went along. How much is that is NIU just sort of getting worn down and State's depth wearing out? I don't know. But, that philosophy doesn't really apply once you get into SEC play and you're facing SEC teams that have the same type of depth and, frankly, better talent than you have. So having a running back who can make something out of nothing. And look, he's shown more as a receiver out of the backfield than I thought he would. He's shown the burst around the edge, which is the big thing. It's not just that he's a guy who is going to run it up the gut and be physical, although he's really good at that. But there's more of explosiveness to his game than I was expecting as well. And I think that's going to help out a lot. Now, one of the run blocking things, as I alluded to, is to playing right into the sloppiness and the penalties. State's offensive line, it feels like almost every other time State pops a big run, it gets called back for holding. And it's like every single time it's like, well, why is there a holding call constantly? And sometimes it's tight ends, and that's a little bit of a different situation. But you see it with the O-line a bit. And it is frankly caused by one of the schemes that State runs quite a bit. So State's really one of their foundational runs, if not the foundational run, is tight zone, which tight zone is just inside zone. It's just more straight downhill. You're kind of instead of aiming, I guess, for the A gap or the B gap, I think you're literally aiming for the center's butt crack is the way it's taught. And I'm not saying that to just be funny. Like I literally think that is a thing in playbooks for teams that run tight zone. Aim at the crack of the center. They're trying to get as straight downhill as quickly as possible. And the reason they do that is it's a run scheme that plays right off of what they want to do with their splits. They split the receivers out as much as possible, so the space to run the ball is within the gaps. You're not really trying to run to the outside or run around the edge. You are trying to get down, get north-south as quickly as possible to attack a light box. That's the philosophy and idea. Now, because of that, what you see from a lot of defenses is they counter with defensive fronts that are designed to take that away. So they try to clog up the interior gaps. If you've heard of the tight front, which is a really popular defensive front, like both B gaps are taken care of and you got a nose tackle right on the center. That is a super popular front for taking that type of run away. So when all of it gets clogged up in the front, what the running back has to do is, okay, now I have to bounce the run outside, get around the edge, which is fine. You tend to still hit some big runs that way. And I know I kind of said you don't want to run the outside with the wide splits, but it's one thing to, get around the, run to the alley outside the numbers, like bouncing outside the tackle is a little bit of a different story. They love to do that, especially because the linebackers, when you get this, are having to fit downhill into the gap. So you can get around outside the tackle. That's great. But what that does when you've got an offensive line that's kind of blocking straight ahead, and especially you think about the guys at the tackle, they've got a defensive lineman on their inside shoulder. Rip Mike Leach. Yeah, I'm wearing the swinger sword. Shout out to the Pirate. If you've got that defensive lineman on your inside gap and he sees the running back bounce to the outside, well, now what is that defensive lineman doing? He is moving outside to get outside and set the edge and get to the running back. Well, as an offensive lineman, if you've got a guy inside and you're blocking him on the inside and he moves to the outside real quick, well, all of a sudden you're going to be yanking him. Because as we all know, offensive linemen hold every single play. You don't block well without holding. That's just a part of it. There's a way you have to go about it, though, to make sure the referees can't see it. The problem is if that defensive lineman moves quickly and you're not expecting him to, well, now you're going to be yanking on him. And that sounded great. Pause. Now you're going to have a hold of him. And I'm sorry, I'm very immature. Now you got a hold of him, and now it's going to be a holding call because the line judge is going to see that every single time. Now, it's the exact same idea if you get a quarterback scrambling outside of the pocket. Like a lot of holding calls happen when a quarterback takes off to the sideline. I'm not going to put that comment up, but yeah. A lot of those holding calls happen with the quarterback leaving the pocket. It's the exact same idea because as an offensive lineman, you're expecting your quarterback to be in the pocket, and all of a sudden he moves. Well, the defensive line's going to chase him, and you're in a different spot. That's going to be an issue this team's going to run into. Now, they have to account for that. And as I mentioned on Twitter, going back and forth with a couple of y'all, actually, like, it's not that this is a run that has been a part of this offense for years and years and years. Like they've run this for a long time, and they've seen defenses counter this way to it. I guarantee you they are teaching their offensive linemen, like, hey, you have to know if the running back bounces this, the defensive lineman's going to try to go with him. Like, you have to be aware of that and not get caught holding. So it's a coaching point you have to handle better. I also think State should just not run that as much, just to be completely honest. In general, tight zone, inside zone, those runs do not work nearly as well as they used to. Everything I just said about defense is trying to clog up interior lanes. The same philosophy applies against most every spread offense that's out there, because that's just what defenses have found is going to be really effective, especially when it comes to dealing with the RPO game. If you can take away like basic RPOs off of inside zone, you shut down a lot of offenses. And tight zone, inside zone is the exact same way. So defenses are used to being able to do this. And I think offensively, the counter is that you have to find other ways of running the football and running counter. Like that was something State did in this game that helped them out in that spot. They're not going to go away from running that play. It's still going to be a big part of what they do. But I would say that might be an adjustment going forward, is to not lean on that quite as much. But look, overall, they were able to get the ground game going. That's something they were able to lean on offensively. If they can run it better, then yes, it'll help them out quite a bit. But the big thing is, like, you just can't miss the opportunities that you had. Like that is a big thing. Like, this game was closer than it needed because you missed on shots downfield. And that's something Shapen has got to improve about going forward. And if you handle that, it's going to fix things quite a bit for you. Over on the defensive side of the ball, okay, not dominant. Look, you only give up 267 yards. Held them to 1 of 9 on third down, 0 of 2 on fourth downs, although there was some controversy there. Quarterback, though, Holst, 14 of 23 for 135, a touchdown and an interception. Running game, Shavon Wright, 13 for 47 yards, did a pretty good job containing him. Telly Johnson hit the one big run. He had 6 carries for 46 yards. 32 of those came on one run. So overall, State did a pretty good job of bottling him up as well. Holst was able to get free a couple times. Kind of the surprising things was they were able to get something going in the pass game. De'Ari Rogers, 6 catches for 84 yards and a touchdown. Only guy to really make an impact. Gary Givens had 1 good catch for 19 yards. And it was off RPO, glance route, good coverage. It was just more of a good play by the offense than anything. But they were able to get some throws down the field a little bit. And I thought NIU clearly adjusted. They took advantage of their bye week. I watched NIU highlights against Holy Cross. I wasn't going to sit there and watch that whole game, but I watched every snap against Maryland. And, man, offensively, they were just very bland. Just a lot of just basic quick pass game, just throwing hitch routes and little short crossers. Run game was a lot of just basic zone stuff, which they mostly ran zone in this game. But, I mean, they kept it very simple. Not a lot of RPO off of it. Not a lot of quarterback bootleg. Not a lot of moving their guys around. Not a lot of shots downfield. They just kept a very, very simple vanilla game plan over and over and over again, and it's why they were not very effective. They changed things up in this game. You saw more RPO usage, which I thought was big because they got some opportunities to hit some guys for some throws in the flats and let them get upfield. They moved Holst around, which I think is so smart because, one, Holst can run. That is a part of his game. He's not a killer on the ground, but he's a good enough runner that he can make you pay, and he's someone that you should get involved in the run game. And it looked like they tried to run, a few more option looks with him. They tried to roll him out to give him some easier completions, but also that opened up some stuff down the field for them. And that was the other thing. They took more shots down the field. State played more aggressively defensively. See any defensive stunts up front. I'll be honest, I did not pay close attention to what State was doing from a D-line standpoint. I will just say, they clearly were more aggressive in this game. They blitzed a lot more, which I thought was a smart move to make. Force NIU to make plays they have not done this year. They did load the box a little bit more. We still saw some of the 3-down stuff, but that was mostly when NIU was in long yardage. They loaded the box a lot more. They sent a lot of pressure. Pressure didn't do a great job of getting home. I'll be honest. I mean, defensively, I'm just trying to – did State have a sack? State had one sack from Rashawn Thomas. Oh, good for him getting a sack against his old team. I didn't even notice when that play happened. 6 tackles for loss. Half for Diego Brumfield, half for Nick Mitchell, 1 for Sillo, half for Williams, 1 for Hibbler. That was a really good play from him, which really that should have just been the quarterback pulling the ball, but still made a really good play, got downhill quick. Javen Williams with 1, and Bledsoe with half a tackle for loss. They were more aggressive defensively. They played more one-on-ones on the outside and the slots, and State's safeties did get beat a few times. State's corners have held up well this season, but their safeties hadn't been tested all that much. They got tested in this game, and it wasn't great. Jerron Manning's okay. It looked rough. He was grabbing his ankle, and then ultimately comes back in the game, and then not long after he's back out. So I hope he's okay because he's supposed to be one of State's better players there on the back end. But look, they tried to test NIU, and NIU took advantage of it, and they were able to connect on a few plays. And honestly, it's not far off from what I said I thought would make sense as a game plan. Do you risk giving up a few big plays to not let NIU nickel and dime you and just control the clock? And ultimately, that's what State did. I'm curious, time of possession. State actually had the time of possession edge when it's all said and done. I know some of that was killing the clock at the end. But NIU is obviously a team that wants to sit on the ball and move as slowly as possible. And State didn't really let them do that, which is good. Again, you gave a few plays, but you kind of are okay with it. That said, D-line got pushed around far more than you would like to see. I don't want to think that losing Will Whitson would be that big of a drop-off, but so far it looks like it is. There were several times where it didn't matter that they had 4 down linemen or frankly were sometimes showing a 5-man front. D-line got pushed around more than you would have liked to have seen quite frequently. There were several times where a guy goes to make a tackle and they can't get him down with first contact. It just was not really the physical effort you would have liked to have seen from the Bulldog defense, honestly, in this game. And again, hold them well under 300 yards. Only give up 10 points. 1 of 9 on third downs, a couple 4th down stops. You get an interception. Those are tough. They didn't play poorly, and there were several drives where they got off the field, even when the offense wasn't performing all that well. But there's just a few moments you look there and it's well, crap, man. Teams that can run the ball well, that scares me. Or teams that are going to do a better job of scheming stuff up for their slot receivers against State safeties. I worry about that a little bit now. So, I wonder what that's going to look like. Now, again, you acknowledge NIU had a bye week to prepare for it. And I don't want to completely excuse things, but they were able to change things up offensively. The offense State saw in this game was not the same offense NIU was running the first couple of weeks. So perhaps they just were not ready for everything that they saw. And look, the other part of that, for as much as like State has done a good job of focusing in and locking in on every single game, is it possible they were just looking ahead to Tennessee? It's not out of the question. Um, like that game looming still matters and means something. So I wouldn't be shocked if State just wasn't fully locked in because of what they had ahead of them. But you would have liked to have seen a more complete effort. You would have liked to have seen more pressure get home. Like that's the other thing is like they sent pressure and they didn't generate a lot of it. I don't know if quarterback hurries, if any of that is available. QB hurries, they had 3 in this game. Silla had 1, Reed had 1, and yeah, Brumfield had 1. So I mean, there was a couple times they were able to get a little bit of pressure, but that's a concern, man. The lack of pass rush. You would like to see more dominance in that area. Like this is a game where, I understand Southern Miss why they didn't have a ton of pass rush. It was the way they played. Alcorn State was kind of the same way. Now, Alcorn State's a team you feel like we should rush 3 and still blow them up. But, NIU, they did a good job getting pressure. But once Whitson was out, that went down significantly. Northern Illinois' offensive line's not been good this year. And for them to, 1, be able to get some push up front, but the 2, to not give up a lot of pressure and kind of handle what State was doing from a blitz standpoint, it worries me a little bit. Like, I can't say I'm not worried. Now, here's a good point, but this team is still way more competitive and ready to win than last season. 100%. Like, we're sitting here labeling off a lot of negatives in a game State wins by 4 touchdowns, which is crazy compared to where this team was last season. It is one night and day. This team is far better, and I think we do have to catch ourselves a little bit here. Like winning games, you get excited really quick, and you start having visions of grandeur. Which my perception of this team of being anything more than a bowl team has not shifted at any point, even after the win over ASU. But you do still have to recognize that there is a reason this team's win total was 3.5, which they went over that win total. They were over with still a week to go in September, over before October. Now, they're going to have to play better if they're going to be well over that total. But they went over on the win total. Like that's a good thing to see. And I've more thoughts on that here in a sec. Like you do have to remember though that it was that total was that for a reason. This team was not going to become a great team in one off season. I think we do have to catch ourselves a little bit, recognizing, hey, like they're still going to be flawed. Like some of the stuff we're looking at with the defense, it's concerning. The fact that to this point they have allowed 17, 20, 0, and 10 points. I'm not going to do the math on that real quick, but it's 47 points allowed, I think. No? Yeah? Like 47 points allowed over 4 games. Like that's – you'll take that. You'll take that all day. There's no doubt this defense is much better. And then offensively, some of the sloppiness as well. The offense is where I will say it is a bit more concerning because you would have thought year 2 Jeff Lebby would be a big step forward, and it just hasn't quite been there. But they're still better on that side of the ball than we thought they'd be. Like, you do have to view this team through a lens of, like, treat this like year 1, treat like they're actually showing signs of growth, and you can ideally try to build off of that and, look, hopefully get better over the course of the year. And as we talked about right off the jump, they still have not played a complete game to this point, and they're 4-0, and 3 of those wins have been, like, not even competitive when it was all said and done. You will take that. You will take the growth from that. Now, the flip side, and why I understand why fans are concerned, is we do see the reality that conference play is about to start, and a lot of these mistakes are going to come back to bite you. Like, you see some of the stuff on defense, and it looks similar to what you saw last year, and it's like, oh, crap. And, look, I do think defensively, I said this before the year, State's defensive numbers against SEC teams are probably going to look rough when it's all said and done. I hope I'm underselling them, and I hope they prove me wrong. But before this season, I thought, like, their defensive numbers are probably not going to look good in conference play. My judge for the defense, frankly, what does that look like when you're in non-conference? Do you look like a competent defense against teams you should be better than? They have. Offensively, again, my expectations are higher for that unit. That group has to continue to grow and get better. But overall, like, yeah, it is going to be tougher in SEC play, but we do have to remember they've set themselves up. Look into that next game. How much does it matter that Tennessee hasn't played an away game yet? I mean, if you create an incredible atmosphere inside Davis Wade, and I think the atmosphere will be. I know people were a little frustrated with this game. I have to think it's going to be a sellout in Starkville next week. You're 4-0 for the first time since 2014. You have a top 15 opponent coming to town. And I know it was mentioned earlier that Tennessee gave up like 24 points to UAB. But yeah, Tennessee's defense has issues. Like, you can move the ball against Tennessee. Like, I think State's going to have a chance in that game to put some points on the board. It's can you get the defense to take a little bit step forward, or can the offense do enough? Can you win a shootout? Like, that game has kind of flipped before the year. I thought that was a game where like you were going to have to hope to win a low scoring affair at home, kind of similar to what you saw against Arizona State. Now I'm looking like that's probably going to be a game where you're going to have to put a lot of points on the board to keep up. It could look a lot more like we thought year one Jeff Lebby would look like. But that means the offense is going to have to play better. So look, keeping things within reason and understanding like this team still has a long way to go, and understanding that ultimately bowl eligibility would still be massive for this team. It's not going to be easy for them to get to a bowl. Like, it's still a tough schedule the rest of the way, but they are clearly better, and they did what they ultimately had to do to give themselves a chance. They are 4-0. And kind of like my closing thought here, and I talked about this a little bit on earlier in the week in the preview show. When I came into this season, what did I set as a baseline expectation for this team? For me, it was win the 3 games against non-conference opponents that you absolutely should, and ideally do so convincingly, and then find at least one win over a power conference team. Find one win over a team where it's like that team's good or that team's solid. If you can do that, that is a huge sign of a step forward to show that you can handle business against teams you're supposed to, and then actually beat someone of quality. That is the sign of that is baseline competence for a football program. And I know competence is not what State fans are striving for, but competence is what you need after the last 2 years. You've achieved all of that. You won your 3 games over G5 FCS teams the way you should have, and even not playing great. I mean, Southern Miss, that game was not even as close as a 17-point game. In this game, State wins by 28. Now, this is one where I think it was closer than that, but you pulled away. The games were ultimately, in the second half, you pulled away in both those games. Alcorn is what it is. You run them out the building. You did what you're supposed to. You got a big win. You beat Arizona State. Now, I don't know how great Arizona State's going to be when it's all said and done, but I still don't think they're a bad team. They're going to be a quality opponent at the end of the season. That is a really good win to have. You have achieved the baseline expectation of this program is moving in the right direction. We can build going forward. Now, as I did mention when we talked about this earlier in the week, the fact that the big win came over Arizona State changes expectations the rest of the way. It would be really, really tough to be 4-0 and not go to a bowl game. Like, God forbid you don't win a conference game. That would be a tough pill to swallow, and I think a lot of the momentum you built would be gone. Even 1-7, like only finding one conference win the rest of the way would be frustrating for fans to deal with. It would clearly be an improvement step forward. It would be tough when you were talking about being 4-0 on the season. They need to find a couple more wins, and they're gonna have to play better to do so. The bar was immediately raised. Like, yes, beating Arizona State changed things for you because you get a big one like that early in the season. You have to continue building off it. And as much as maybe that's not totally fair because the schedule is still going to be difficult, when you get a win like that and you see what the team is capable of, unless we just come to find out Arizona State's a terrible team, you get a win like that and it changes the perception. Okay, well, now you can continue to build. Winning that game allowed you to be 4-0. Being 4-0 gives yourself a huge opportunity against Tennessee. Right now, am I going to predict State to win that game? No, just based on what I've seen out of the two teams. But you have a chance in it. Arkansas, they lost him. They may not have a coach when State comes to play, which I don't know. Bobby Petrino as an interim might be better for them than Sam Pittman calling things. But that defense is terrible. Like, State's going to be able to – now, their offense cooks. But State's going to be – they also find ways to self-destruct. State's going to have a chance there. Florida, as I'm watching them right now against Miami, are they going to have a coach when Mississippi State goes to Gainesville? Like, you're going to have a chance in that game. And Ole Miss took it to Tulane today. Like, maybe they got some with Trinidad Chambliss. But also, I mean, Tulane is not quite as good as they were a few seasons ago. They're still fine. We'll see what Ole Miss ends up being. But defensively, they've not been impressive to this point. even though they got the blowout today. And that game's in Starkville. You have these games are going to have a chance. And I'm not even going to talk about some of the other opportunities. Yeah, Florida and Arkansas definitely look winnable. I think the Egg Bowl looks winnable. How many points can you put on the board against Tennessee? I don't know, but we'll see. State's going to have a chance in several of these games. So you've got to find a way to get it done. And look, you've laid a foundation. Now you can sort of start moving forward and building off of it. But look, you get the win today. Had to get it done. You avoided taking a embarrassing loss. I will say, like, I was nervous going into this game. Like, I wasn't nervous going into Arizona State because my expectations hadn't been raised. I was nervous going into this one because it's like, God, what if State does the thing that they cannot do? Like, they need to just win this football game and handle business. I don't know if I'll be nervous going into other games at this point of the season because I think going forward, it's kind of like, okay, let's see if they can find a couple wins. But this was one you had to get through. And ultimately, State's avoided a truly embarrassing loss to this point. I know a blowout loss could still happen, but what's embarrassing is losing to a G5 team, and they've managed to not do that this year. That is a good sign for the program. I want to dance on Napier's grave. Yeah, that'd be a ton of fun. Keep in mind, that was future Mississippi State head coach Billy Napier, or former. He was effectively hired before the Egg Bowl. Shout out to I'm not going to say name because I don't want to attribute it to the wrong guy, but I think I know who it was. But yeah, that's former Mississippi State head coach Billy Napier at that. State gets the win, 38-10, 4-0 on the season. You go into the Tennessee week, going to be the biggest game in Starkville in a very long time. Thanks to all of you who tuned in. If you haven't already, give us a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, turn that notification bell on, and if you could share the channel or share the stream whenever we're going live. I know we're wrapping up now, but for the future, would greatly appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for listening. And as always, swing your sword. Hail State.
College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread, and I've got a 40-plus year track record. 11-0 in the college football playoff for me last year against the money line, 8-3 against the spread. And I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is our ace in the hole, show stopper. 7 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick. 28-12 against the spread the last 3 years. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Corey Bratta, Matt Zemek, and Steve Dace. Check out those numbers. Become a YouTube or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and then select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2025 a winner now.